Hello, this is Francesca Vigliani from Cloud Academy. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Today, we'll explore how you can build your bench and retain AWS skills. As you all know, reInvent is fast approaching, and we can't wait to see you all at booth 1809, where we can talk more about your cloud journey in detail. We know there's a lot of anticipation for the event. We thought that we'd focus this webinar specifically on AWS skills, and who better to talk about them than two Cloud Academy experts and webinar veterans like Stuart Scott, AWS Lead, and Mark Smith, Solutions Engineer. Thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thanks, Francesca, and thanks for everyone for joining. We're excited to be talking with you today.
I second that. Thank you very much.
All right, I think we can start. So take it away, Mark.
All right, great. Again, thanks everyone for joining. We're really excited for reInvent this year, and we just wanted to take a moment. You know, having a solid migration or transformation strategy is basically like a checklist to ensure that you have a successful implementation and journey into the cloud. So we wanted to, in the time leading up to reInvent, just to share some basic steps that Stu and I have kind of put together to help you to see what our take is on you being able to ensure a smooth transition. So with that, I'll get things started.
Okay, so the first point really is to define and set your roadmap milestones. And as it says at the top there, you can't get to your destination if you don't know where you need to be. So the first point here is to do with your business requirements. What is your ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve as a business? And this is very much related to your business objectives. Why are you looking to move to the cloud? Are you looking to optimize your current operating costs? Are you looking to meet the demands of scaling your infrastructure and making use of the cloud elasticity? Or are you looking to take advantage of the shared security responsibilities by sharing those responsibilities with AWS or another cloud vendor? So it's really defining what you're trying to achieve from a business requirements objective as the end goal of migrating to the cloud. I mean, everyone talks about we need to migrate to the cloud, we need to get on there, we need to be multi-cloud. But why? What does it mean for your business? And it's really trying to define what those objectives are. And it's also looking at your workload migration. If you're looking to migrate your workloads, that is. Are you just looking to migrate your applications that you're using, or just some different services, looking to re-architect some different services onto the cloud from in-house? Or are you just looking at the cloud for storage, backup, and DR, for example? So there's so many different use cases for cloud migration, and it's important to understand what you're trying to achieve. And you can look at your current state within your data centers that you might have, how your infrastructure is running, and look at where you want to be in the cloud, your future state. It's a very different type of architecture from on-prem to in-cloud, and there's going to be lots of re-architecting required, and it's kind of understanding that main goal of what is your ultimate objective and work into that.
Yeah, I think that's all great points, and part of that feeds into this. And we work with a ton of organizations, and even prior to coming here, I've worked with a lot of organizations in looking into migrating to the cloud. Beginning with the end in mind is certainly you know, a good step, but ultimately, if you're consumed by the end state, you may lose sight of some of what's immediately in your future. So when you're talking, and Stu's talking about workload migration, the current state versus future state, yes, I agree. You know, maybe your goal is to have everything migrated, all your workloads, all your entire data center migrated over to the cloud by a certain period of time. But ultimately, you should take an idea of take an inventory of what of your workloads are absolutely mission critical, so you can migrate those first, and then get an idea of it's important to kind of set that tone. So you can kind of recognize and see some things that you may be able to achieve first. When you're evaluating that and looking at that, a good part is to kind of identify where your readiness exists. A lot of times organizations aren't taking inventory of where their in-house knowledge and skill set exists. You should absolutely view your in-house knowledge, the skill set that already exists in your organization. Let's face it, at this point and towards the end of 2018 now, there's a wide variety of people that have some knowledge about the cloud, depending on the status and the size of your organization. Use those internal resources as champions for your cause. Make sure that you are absolutely taking inventory of that and setting them apart as people to kind of help you achieve these milestones that you're putting in your ultimate goals up here. And then feeding into the cloud compatibility and the systems applications. That's a critical.
Sorry, Mike, just on that previous point, I was just going to say that there could be people within your organization that have cloud skills that you aren't aware of.
Right.
They might have a significant interest in the cloud and kind of be learning the cloud outside of your own workplace environment. So it's really kind of understanding who in our organization does have some skills, because it could be people that you expect might not, and people that you don't expect might have some cloud knowledge. So it's really kind of identifying who those people are.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Stu. And to this next point here on the compatibility of systems and applications, isn't this kind of a critical component? You may have, in this state of where we're at, some of these legacy applications obviously are not
Definitely.
built for the cloud, but you may have some that are more well maintained and able to be migrated over quicker. I mean, this is a chance to kind of recognize some small wins, right?
Definitely, yeah, certainly, you're absolutely right there. With a lot of the larger kind of organizations and enterprises, there will be more old legacy applications that might have been running on the same server for the past 10 years, and everyone's afraid to reboot the server in case it doesn't come back up and you've kind of lost the application. I've seen that so many times, and people are afraid of kind of migrating systems like this. So this is a really good opportunity to look at how to re-architect some of those applications and some of those systems that really aren't working well on premise. They're really not kind of resilient as they should be. And by migrating them to the cloud, you can look at new technologies to architect them within the cloud. And unfortunately, not everything can migrate to the cloud if you're just looking to do a lift and shift. And a lift and shift from your on-prem to the cloud, you won't always get the benefits of what the cloud has to offer. For example, the scalability and the elasticity, because your resources and applications need to be built in a decoupled environment, in a decoupled way where each component can act independently of all other components within your solution. So they're not dependent on one another. And that enables them to scale with traffic and demand. And it's being able to have the ability and understanding of your current applications and resources on-prem and how they can be cloud ready and cloud effective when you migrate them. So it's a real good opportunity to use some new technology and re-architect your infrastructure for the better, that's for sure.
Awesome. Now, how about proof of concept? And this is a chance to kind of help build some confidence in the process. And Stu, I'd love to get your feedback.
At this point, you've looked at your readiness. You've got some in-house skill set, or you've bought some external, but preferably in-house is better. You've looked at some of the compatibility issues and looked at how you can kind of remediate them. And you've ultimately got your business objective and your goal defined. So now it's time to implement a proof of concept, which is a small version of some of your applications or some of the services that you want to migrate to the cloud, not to run heavy production workloads. So you'll still run your existing production workloads in-house on-prem. This is just a small proof of concept project to show that it can be done, to show that you can migrate data, you can migrate applications and services, and they are operational. Because you don't want to run into the mistake of going for a full-blown migration of one of your biggest applications, only to realize that, oops, we hadn't thought of this. We run into a problem when we're migrating to the cloud. That's a bad place to be in. So if you do a small proof of concept on some of the core services that you're looking to migrate, it gives you a real understanding of any pitfalls that you might have in your current knowledge and skill set. And then you can train up and learn from those, kind of learn from any mistakes that you have during your proof of concept. And like you say, it builds that confidence for when you do start the main transition.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is something we're hearing from our customers, and something I've heard over the last several years is starting with these proof of concept, building that confidence is absolutely critical to kind of championing the cause along the way too. So yeah, great points there. And now kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, with the transformation and migration.
Yeah, so I'd say this is kind of a separate project completely. So you've got your goals defined, you've got your readiness and your compatibility defined. You've proved it with your proof of concept that you can do what you need to do to meet your goals. Now is the big one, the transformation and migration, and you'll break this down into your different services and applications and kind of do it over time. You won't migrate everything at once, and you'll do one or two to start with to build the confidence to make sure everything's working as it should be, and then as your team develops their skills, they'll be able to migrate more at a faster pace. So it's about migrating those services and the data to the cloud, and understanding how you're going to do that as well, because I should have mentioned this earlier when looking at your current and future state. You could have vast amounts of data. You could have several gig or several terabytes or even petabytes. How are you going to move that amount of data to the cloud? Now there's services out there that will do that for you, but you need to have this planned in and as a part of your transformation and migration project. And then it's how you operate within the cloud. So your services are built, your data's there, and you're starting to run production workloads. How can you ensure that you're maintaining successful operation of those services? You need to have monitoring and alerting set up. You need to have security well defined, and we'll come into that a bit more later when we start talking about roles. Security in the cloud is kind of number one. So you really need to have that nailed. And then once you start operating in the cloud and you're kind of happy, your customers are happy, you need to measure that success. How do you know that your customers are happy? Are they seeing the benefits that you wanted them to see, or was it just purely your own business objectives? Is this helping your customers in any way? And you want to measure that success to then return that internally to the organization to say, look, this is where we were, this is how we were operating. We've now migrated to the cloud, and these are all the benefits we're seeing from our success.
Yeah. And another part of this, and I'll add to this, which transitions into our next point, but you don't have to start from level zero, so to speak. If you're adequately inventorying and putting in inventory the people that you have on staff who already have experienced this, I can assure you, you'll have a pool of people to pull from successes and failures, kind of that the try and then fail type mentality, but then try and succeed. So you'll get a good mix of both. But ultimately, people have tried this before. There are best practices that are out there for you. And I encourage, and I think it would be a great business practice to kind of identify some of those best practices before you actually start putting, and like I said before, the rubber meets the road. So really
that's a really good point. And kind of looking at some of those failed attempts is sometimes better than the success, because you can see the mistakes that people made and kind of learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like we tell our kids all the time too. So, so we've defined and we've set our roadmap milestones. And the next thing that you're going to want to do is establish your roles and the target skills that you're going to do here. So one of the key points, one of the areas that I find where organizations that I've worked with over the years have struggled the most is how do you identify who those internal cloud champions are? So we've talked a little bit about identifying those people that you have on your staff who have some experience here. Depending on the size of your organization, and this actually exists out there. I know many of you on the call may have a cloud center of excellence. I don't think it really matters to the size of your organization. I think it could actually be a very good thing to label a cloud center of excellence. And part of that is going to be a team that identifies not just the IT staff, but the actual people that are going to be affected. Cloud transformation is not just an IT project. It's not just an IT thing. This affects your entire organization. So part of that, you're going to have to identify the program and project managers that are going to help you implement this. You need to create a champion within each of these departments that's going to be affected by this cloud transformation. Make sure that you have one person, one or two people in each department who understand the concept, who know exactly how this is going to work, so they could be your champions internally. So you're not having to constantly put out fires with each individual department about, oh, my job's changing, these things are changing, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work. Just make sure that you're setting yourself up for success by actually rolling this out and creating a very efficient cloud center of excellence, whatever you want to call it. But you essentially have a champions group in there to make sure that people are on board with this transformation and understand that it's of value to them. They shouldn't be afraid or shy away from it, but this is actually going to make life better for your organization as you move forward. And
Yeah,
then,
from experience,
go ahead.
Mark, when I was in a large organization, a similar thing happened, and a lot of people straight away started kind of panicking and worrying about their jobs and having these little secret meetings in the corner, thinking, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And they didn't really have the champions within the business to reassure the different departments on how it was going to work and put those communication statements out. So I think it's key and fundamental to just kind of prevent a lot of your quality staff from almost jumping ship because they're scared and worried,
Yeah.
that all communication has been outlaid as to what it means for them. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah, no need to hide it. Be upfront and forthcoming with it, and you'll find it's more embraced when you do that. The other part of this, when you're establishing the roles and you put together your cloud champion group, the cloud center of excellence, whatever you may call it, is identifying those roles that are going to be crucial to your milestone. We've already established that this just isn't an IT transformation. This is going to affect your entire role. So if I take a look at the way AWS has done it, they've done an excellent job in identifying those critical roles within IT that are going to be absolutely imperative in making sure that your cloud transformation is a smooth journey along the way. Everything from starting out baseline with architects, developers, systems operations, and now rolling out specialty certs for networking, big data, security. But think about the business aspect of it too. We have here project teams, finance, HR, customer success. Think about the business analysts, everyone that's going to be affected by the cloud. It's just really important to make sure that these roles are adequately defined, what they're actually not in addition to their role, but what role they're going to play in this transformation, because they're going to play a part. It's going to happen. It has to happen in order for it to be successful. So with that in mind,
sorry, Mark.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stu. I was actually going to ask you what you think about the most critical in these roles. What you think about the most critical
I was just
roles
going to say that not all the roles will be kind of required from day zero. That they'll develop over time. So looking at the milestone perspective, one of the key roles from a cloud transformation perspective is the cloud architect, because they have a good all-round knowledge of all components, from infrastructure to operational controls to kind of backup solutions. So they can provide a real high level foundation of how your infrastructure needs to look. They can work with the program managers and the project managers to really understand the requirements needed by the business and then propose the fit for purpose technologies that will meet those goals. And they can guide them as well. They can guide all the way through the development of the solutions to work with those PMs to make sure it's been architected the correct way. So, and once you've got your infrastructure and kind of main foundation of your solution mapped out, then you can start bringing in the other teams, such as the DevOps, to how they're going to run their applications. Are they going to use serverless technology? Are they going to start running container technology within it? And also, and fundamentally, is your security engineers. I mean, security is mapped out, should be mapped out within every role, especially from a technical perspective, because it has to be implemented at every layer through the cloud stack. So every team should be aware of their responsibilities from a security perspective. But you need those security specialists, those security experts, to kind of make sure that each of the teams are fulfilling their requirements from a security point of view. And just to make sure that your infrastructure, your architecture, your resources, your customers, your data is all properly secured. I mean, migrating data to the cloud can be a fairly simple process. I mean, to fire up an EC2 instance and to copy data across to it can be done in minutes. But ensuring that data is secure and no one can access that instance is a different thing. It needs a different level of knowledge. So, like I say, from the outset, the architect can lay the foundation. They can say, you need this type of technology, you need this infrastructure, you need this network and this storage, this database. But then they need to start putting in the more specific teams to understand how to secure and implement the applications and data across that infrastructure.
Yeah,
so everyone's kind of roles will be used at different stages.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love about the way AWS is kind of architected. No pun intended. Their certifications is security is a component of every one of those what they consider the core roles within the cloud transformation.
Yeah,
So every
correct.
architecting, developing system there's always a security component embedded in it. They should always be thinking about the solutions with security in mind. But the fact that there's a specialty certification for security shows just exactly how important that is to eliminating that stigma of cloud not being secure. So
Yeah,
I think
and
that's an
I think they've
excellent
had
point.
to introduce that because over the past couple of years and beyond, AWS and other cloud vendors have introduced so many more security services to help the customer protect their infrastructure. I mean, we hear too often about these breaches where customer data was exposed to millions of people and millions of records were kind of leaked, etc. A lot of that comes down to lack of knowledge and understanding, and some of it comes down to not kind of implementing the controls as they should or not being aware. So with all these new security services and not just the services, security features within existing services that aren't necessarily security related, it needs someone who has an awareness of all of it throughout the whole cloud stack to
Yep.
make sure you're being protected. And I think that's why they brought this security specialty out, just to show that you have that verification and validation and show confidence in the business,
Yeah.
not just to customers, but to kind of internal C-level employees as well, that it's being secure.
Yep. Yeah, and that feeds into the next point, which is, you've identified the roles and the skills required, but you need to frequently revisit those skill requirements. We know, and I'm going to let Stu talk about this because I know, being our AWS lead, he's very intimate, has an intimate understanding of all the updates that AWS has made. But it's no secret that technology is evolving, these roles are evolving, and then couple that with the fact that your business and your strategy is changing. It's absolutely imperative that you stay on top of these skill requirements, because that equates to money when we're talking about your business, right? So if you're not staying on top of the technology and using that to the best of your ability and to the benefit of your organization, your organization is going to suffer on the back end when it relates to money. Your competition is going to take steps ahead of you. So it's imperative to kind of stay on top of that, and your strategies are going to change over time depending on your organization, the vertical that you're in. Your strategy and your business needs are going to change. These services that are constantly evolving and changing are they're basically changing and fitting your organization in a way that you can make them absolute best use of them to accomplish the outcomes that you're looking for. So it's imperative to stay on top of these skill requirements. And Stu, I wanted to kind of turn it over to you to talk about what you're
Yeah, I was
seeing
just going to
specifically
say,
with AWS. Yeah.
we've used the word evolving there, and I think that's quite an understatement. So rapid. Last year, I think AWS had about 1,700 updates across all their services, and that includes implementing new services to kind of minor updates and features to existing services. So there's such a change happening constantly. Daily, I get messages from AWS saying, "Oh, we've just released this new feature. We've just updated this within one of our services." And for me as a trainer, it's a nightmare. Trying to kind of stay ahead of everything is so difficult, and then kind of moving forward with that. So I'm a little bit worried this year about reInvent 2018, kind of what what they're going to bring out, and but I look forward to it. So it's new technology is always great. It's kind of usually for the better. So I'm interested to see what new changes are coming and getting some content out there as well on the latest technology.
Yeah, enjoy enjoy the time out there for reInvent, because I know you're going to be busy, when you get back. So,
Long days.
yeah, exactly. So, we've defined our milestones. We've kind of set a roadmap. We've established our roles and the target skills. And what's next is we need to identify how training is going to align to that. it's important to make sure your training is lining up by role. One of the first things, and I don't want to belabor this point, we've covered it a little bit, but I do think it bears repeating, and I'll just full transparency, I'll probably say it again before the webinar is over, but you need to get a baseline knowledge of your teams, where they're at. You have to understand what knowledge exists out there and use that to your advantage. It's just imperative to make sure that you're not shorting yourself, shorting your organization by not taking advantage of what exists out there. Some of these organizations I've worked with have discovered talent, and through some of the training that they've rolled out through our platform, they've seen some of these individuals test out and certain certifications or skill requirements that they had no clue that type of talent existed in their organization. So it's just a critical component to make sure that you're baselining on that level of knowledge that exists within all the teams that are going to be supporting your transformation.
And it helps your kind of employees to feel valued as well, that they've been recognized for their knowledge, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give this one to you, Stu, to kind of talk a little bit about the identifying the different technologies.
So I kind of mentioned a little bit on this earlier. So when you're looking to migrate data, whether it's old or new, or just kind of you're in the cloud and you're still constantly evolving as you do, you need to identify the available technologies to hand. Is there a better way of getting your service out there than what you're currently using? Even if you have migrated it to the cloud already, keep checking it, because new services are brought out all the time. I mean, when serverless was brought out a few years ago, that kind of changed the game for so many people, and it saved people time and money and a lot of headaches not having to look after their own infrastructure. All they had to do was write the code and push it out there, and then AWS managed everything else. So it's technologies like this that can really start to change how you operate in the cloud, and gives you a lot more time as a business to focus on your key goals, your customers and your applications and your services. And also when you're migrating to the cloud as well, look at third parties. I know I keep talking about AWS because it's what I enjoy, it's what I do.
On the mind.
But they have so many third parties, advanced technology partners, storage partners, backup partners, security partners, monitoring partners. There's tool sets from third parties out there that can literally help you with every step of your migration and operation within the cloud. And some of the tools out there are fantastic. I mean, we have the AWS Management Console and everything else that goes with that, which gives us a lot of information. But then there's partners out there that specialize in certain elements, like I say, for monitoring, for example. And their dashboards that they can produce on the data that's running in and out of your infrastructure is phenomenal. And you can use that to kind of enhance your infrastructure better and make additional changes. So don't be afraid to kind of think outside and look outside the box on some of your existing infrastructure that might have been running there for 6 months or a year. Look at what technology is about today. Can you re-architect your existing cloud infrastructure to make it cheaper, faster, more efficient? Is there new EC2 instances out there that could make it better, process your data faster? There's always an element within the cloud that can be refined and kind of made better for you as a business and your customers. So that's another reason to constantly learn about new technology and to kind of be aware of what's happening in the market as things change, because it can allow you to benefit your business again at every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, in talking about the partner network for AWS, I mean, it's phenomenal, the partners that exist out there. I mean, if you want to get an idea of how vast that partner network is, just walk into the exhibit hall, and it's from, I mean, it's booth after booth after booth. So I encourage everyone on this call that's going to be going, get the swag. I mean, enjoy the T-shirts, the socks, or whatever swag you have.
It's all about the swag.
Take a little time to listen to what they're offering, because I can attest firsthand there are some really good third-party providers, that can help you with your journey along the way. I've enjoyed, catching up and speaking to some of them, and we've had a few instances where we collaborate with them on our businesses as well. So yeah, take advantage of that. And feeding into the next part after you're kind of identifying those, you have to take a step in performing a skills gap analysis. So I've been doing this for several years. I've seen skills gap analysis range from a variety of different ways, from these unbelievably just headache bearing spreadsheets where they're logging these different things to tools and things like that come out. It's no secret what Cloud Academy does. We are in the training. We have tools that are available, and we could talk about some of those in a little bit. But it's important to kind of do that analysis to figure out. So you establish the knowledge that exists. Well, the other part of that is establish the knowledge that you don't have. Establish the baseline on where you are, what knowledge you do have, but also make sure you're accounting for the areas where you're, areas of opportunity or areas where you may need to shore up some of those. It's a critical component in making sure that you're ready in identifying these specific training requirements. No, not identifying the skills gaps and just rolling out training ad hoc is going to be a bit of a risk in trying to make sure that people are getting the best use of their time and you're reaching your goals over time as well. The other part of this after you've done your skills gap analysis is you want to make sure that you're training in cycles. So all your training is relating back to your milestones. Your milestones may include actually having a number of certifications. I know that's part of maintaining partnership with AWS. So several of you have made that, have that in mind and part of your milestones. But it's important to look at training as not just a one and done type thing. You get that certification, you're done. If you're looking at it from that mindset, you're missing a whole nother part of the training that kind of goes along with it. You need to make sure, and that feeds back to the point that Stu and I have been talking about, all the updates that are being made, how these services are changing. You're doing your organization a disservice if you're not looking at training in forms of cycles. So you want to take and do the skills gap analysis, understand where your immediate needs lie, roll out a training that is going to capitalize and ensure that you're shoring up that. But along the way, start to think about your next steps after you've gone through that cycle. Actually, figure out exactly where you're at after that, so you can look at your next training cycle to make sure you're keeping up with the needs of your industry, of your business, but also of how the different technologies are changing along the way that you're using.
And the cloud vendors operate the same way, really, because you mentioned certifications there. In AWS, certifications only last for 2 years, and then you have to resit it because after those 2 years, so much has changed. You need to go and resit, and the exam is probably updated. I mean, I think AWS has updated all the associate level certifications now, and they've just released the beta versions of the professional level for the architect and developer. So AWS know that, look, we've released so much new stuff over the past 2-3 years. We need to update our certifications to reflect that and to show that anyone getting the certifications now are up to date with a lot more of our services than we had 2 years ago. So even the cloud vendors are aware of that you need to continue to create alignment and train in cycles. And that's never going to go away, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, think about 2 years is like an eternity. You're talking about, the updates that have been released over the last year. Just think about how that certification, how those goals are going to change over 2 years. It's crazy to think about, but if you're staying and managing your learning accordingly, your organization, from the entire organization on down to the individual that makes up that organization are going to be well prepared to go and recertify whatever those are required to kind of meet your partner status, whatever certifications you need to have on staff. So yeah, it's just a great point. And kind of going into this next step is you've defined your milestones, you've established the roles and target skills. We've just talked about how you're going to identify the specific training requirements. Now the next step is actually taking and leveraging these different assessments, the effort that your employees are putting into training, and you're actually going to want to look and at the outcomes that are being achieved overall. This first point, we've said it before, and I'll say it again on this call, is it's never going to, the technology is never going to stop evolving. Your your knowledge, your organization must have the same mindset. You have to believe that you have to continuously evolve so you can stay a step ahead of the competition in your vertical, and make sure that you're on par to deliver on your business outcomes as they're continuously changing. I know there's a lot of pressure on IT departments to make sure that they're evolving with the needs of their business. This is an imperative point, a critical part of your business outcomes, and it's just something that you have to do. And part of that goes along with setting aside some periodic assessments. You want to take a moment to review what you've achieved against the milestones that you originally set. You may get into some of this, and your milestones that you set may have changed. They may have changed. It's important to kind of baseline what you had originally set and view your achievements against that. It's a critical component in making sure that you're recognizing the wins that you achieved overall, but also the lessons that you've learned in and throughout that journey. So setting aside these intentional periodic assessments is an absolutely essential part of making sure that you're communicating effectively internally and with your organization about where you stand in your cloud transformation. You can use these assessments. It's going to be to view history. Stuart, I'll let you elaborate a little bit on this as well, but again, it feeds to my point originally about the history of your evolution of your transformation over time. Again, those milestones may have changed. Things may have have updated over time. Business needs, business outcomes have changed. But you take a look at where you were. So we talked at the very first slide about current versus future state. Look at your current state compared to what your beginning state was. Take a second to baseline and look exactly where you were and where you are now, and how well positioned you are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's good to see the different topics as well, the different kind of technologies, how that's changed and evolved over time, and how as a team and as an organization, you've grown throughout those elements in your knowledge set. And this will change over time, especially when you're looking to realign with your milestones, because as you start to migrate services, as you start to use cloud services more and more, it might not be working out as you first thought. Despite your proof of concept, you might decide to use a new technology. In that same time frame, a new technology may have been released, a new service may have been released. And so you need to change what you was going to train your staff on this new service and this new technology. And it's really interesting to see over time, in the course of 6 months or a year, how much an individual or a team has developed with kind of broad cloud knowledge.
Yeah, it's great to get on the line with organizations we work with. We're often involved in the skill assessments they're doing when they're going through this continual training cycles, and we'll meet with them and our customer success team to look at where they were, where they are, so we can get an idea of where they should go next. It's great how they're recognizing the achievements, really sometimes in a very short period of time. Oftentimes these training cycles only last 3 months, sometimes less. So it's great to kind of baseline and look at that. And then there's analytics that come from this, right, to measure that training effort. And listen, as much as your skills are growing and as much as you're evolving, the technology is evolving as well. There's always going to be a skills gap.
There's always a gap.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a hamster wheel. You're continuously going. It's just really important that you leverage that data that is available to evaluate not just the skills in demand, but seeing how that demand is evolving over time. When you think about cloud, where it was 6 years ago, and the evolution of DevOps, AI, machine learning, even just multi-cloud as a concept as well, just DevSecOps, all these different things, it's just consistently evolving over time. So it's important to go back and measure that, and then just be honest with yourself and with your organization about where some of those skills gaps lie.
And another point over time as well is the skills will become a lot more defined. I mean, when you first start out, if you're just starting on your cloud journey, you might not have a full understanding of the specific skills that you need. So you kind of go through a broad range of skills to help you get started. And then as you kind of move through your journey, you realize that, okay, we don't need that element so much. We need to focus more on database and storage,
Yeah.
so let's enhance that area. And then as you kind of go through your journey in migration, you start to look more detailed technical content as well. So you can really start to define where the training needs to be to meet your business requirements, because over time you'll have that extra knowledge of the cloud, you have that greater understanding of what components and elements you need to kind of push in. So that really helps as well.
All right, awesome. So we've looked at some of these basic steps that we've outlined. And listen, we want to wrap this up because it's our desire that you are successful in your cloud transformation. We truly want that for our customers, but we want that for, if you're on the line, you're not an existing Cloud Academy customer, we hope that you will take a look at the platform. I will share a little bit with you about that, but ultimately we do want you to be successful. We want you to select a training platform that will help you. I do want to share with you just a little bit about how our platform lines up with these crucial, these basic milestones that Stu and I have talked about. But ultimately, again, we do want to see organizations be successful in adopting, migrating to the cloud, and ultimately evolving as the technology continues to change. So when it comes to Cloud Academy, relating back to defining those milestones, we have a tool. It's a free tool. You can actually go take a look at cloudacademy.com and look at Cloud Roster. This is literally looking at at a lot of these roles that are imperative and making sure that your cloud transformation is running smoothly. We're pulling from literal skills in demand from the job postings, different things like that, but also from industry leaders as to the actual skills that are required to do these jobs well. So it's pulling from, you're going to see, skills that are in demand for AWS. You're going to see they're also asking for Azure skills as well. In addition to some of these, like you're looking on the screen here, Java, Python, all these different things, especially DevOps tools that are being required. This is a great tool for you to kind of go and look at the different, areas that these job roles are focused on, and then ultimately we'll lay out for you some of this, the paths that people go down when they're training in these areas. The next step in this is to actually assess. So you've defined your target. You'll notice a theme here. This is matching up with what we talked about before. You want to assess where your current skills lie. After you've identified those in your organization that are, possess a certain level of knowledge that can help you along with championing the cause and also with your milestones, you want to take a look at your organization overall with skill assessments. Our skill assessment tool is designed to help you assess overall in the cloud when it comes to one of the three major platforms. So AWS, is a theme here. We'll test you on all the different domains that you have there. I think it's great to test by job role, which will have those assessments as well. But testing your organization overall on the entirety of the platform, all the different domains and services that fall under AWS is just a great way to see exactly where some of your strengths and where some of your areas of opportunity lie. The representation you're seeing here is an actual report out, a report out that you would see on where all those strengths and areas of opportunity lie, which subsequently feed into the skill profiles, which I'll talk about here in a moment. The next step here would be to align. You want to align the different content, the things that you have available, the things that you want to make available to your organization when it comes to training. So we have a tool. What you're seeing here is a look at our content engine. Our learning methodology you'll see on our website with the courses, labs, and quizzes, exams. They all filter into what we call learning paths, which is a learn, do, and validate model. So you learn in and through the courses, which are separated out by modules. You do it with the practical hands-on lab experience live in the AWS console or Azure, GCP, whatever it may be. I know a lot of organizations are paying for sandboxes and different things like that. This is actually included with the subscription, so you can get as much practical and hands-on experience with our hands-on labs as you want during the term of your subscription, and then subsequently validating what they're learning and doing in and through the quizzes and the exams and lab assessments, which are going to be an excellent tool that's added where you have guided hands-on labs giving screenshots on how to complete that in the live environment, but ultimately you can assess your employees with giving them the steps they need to complete without those guided the screenshots that's showing them how to walk it through step by step. So tons of practical experience to put in place prior to moving into your production environment. And then Content Engine is a tool that you may have goals and objectives to get trained up and certified on any of the various roles that are out there for AWS. But ultimately, that training is geared towards how they view their services and how they would use it. And for the organizations that we're working with, that's not always reflective of the way that they're using these tools and services. So Content Engine gives you the ability to create your own training that mirrors your stack. So you can create your own custom resources, whether it's PowerPoints, PDFs, Word documents. You can hyperlink out to additional resources. You can put your own videos in there, security policies, tagging policies, whatever it may be. You can literally write your own labs in Content Engine, create your own questions, which feed into your own exams with the goal of creating customized learning paths that you can assign out and make available for your organization to do. The next part of this is to assign. So you actually have to be intentional. With a lot of digital platforms out there, making the access to a content library available to your employees is great, but leaving it at will for them to go and do it is a bit of a risk. So training plans are entitled to make training actionable and hold your organization, your employees accountable for achieving the directives that you've set forth. So taking whether it's a certification-based initiative or specific skills-based training on certain areas, you take training plans, couple all the learning paths that you want, whether it's existing that we have or custom that you've created in Content Engine, and assigning it out with a due date to where if you're looking at the screen, you can monitor how people are doing along the way. You can see exam scores where they're testing out in our certification prep or just any exam or quiz that's in a learning path, and you can actually have tools available to manage that learning experience all the way. And what it's doing is it's creating accountability for them. It's helping you achieve your organizational objectives when it comes to training. But ultimately, you may have an employee that's on an AWS learning path training plan. So they're working on that. They're doing it. They're staying ahead of their timelines. And then something comes up. You're in a multi-cloud environment. They're working within an Azure portal, and something comes up and they need to actually research that. It's creating an intimacy with the platform where they're using that as a first line of defense or resource, and their consumption is continuously going up just through having training plans effectively rolled out. And then you want to measure the success. So everything that everyone is doing on the platform when it comes to quizzes, exams, and lab assessments is going to feed into their skill profile. So you're going to actually be able to measure and put an actual measure on the skill retention and validation over time. So you'll be able to monitor in great detail your overall understanding of the cloud, where your strengths and weaknesses or areas of opportunity lie, but you're actually going to be able to dive deep into any of the platforms that you may be working with, whether it's AWS, Azure, or GCP. You'll be able to look at different domains like DevOps or IoT, containerization, all these different areas, and see exactly how well positioned you are in meeting those milestones when you're working through your cloud transformation. So this is a great way to put through a training cycle, measure how that worked, baseline to see where you need to go next. And finally, the last thing that I'll say here is repeat it. We talked about this before. It's a continual transformation. The technologies are going to change. Services are going to be updated continuously. You want to make sure you're staying on top of it. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a representation of what a training plan, what a cycle would look like. You want to continue that up. The organizations that I'm working with are most successful here are doing these about once per quarter or even a little more frequently than that. This is a way to stay on top of all the technologies as they're evolving, to stay on top of your competition and ensure that you're well positioned as you're moving forward in your cloud journey. That's everything that we had, Francesca. I'll turn it back over to you. I believe we've got an opportunity to answer a couple of questions.
Yeah, just a couple because we're running out of time. So somebody was asking whether YouTube will be a reInvent, but I believe you already answered. Yes, both Mark and Stuart will be at reInvent at booth 1809. And Chris is saying, I manage a small startup and we're just starting our AWS journey. What do you think would be a good starting point for us in terms of AWS skills for our architects?
That's an interesting one because with a small startup, they won't have as many, well, unlikely to have as many legacy applications that are going to need quite a lot of work in re-architecting and kind of making cloud ready. So a lot of that planning and gathering information won't be needed as much as a large enterprise that has been running applications for 15, 20 years, for example. So they're likely to be a lot more agile as well. So they can start to focus on their key areas of business, whether it's kind of applications or security, etc. But having that architecture really understand how the infrastructure needs to be and focus on their business requirements, because they're already likely got services running in the cloud anyway, being a startup. Most startups have. So the transition should be a lot easier and faster and more dynamic. Would you agree, Mark, from the kind of customers that you've been speaking to?
Yeah, absolutely, I do, and I will say this, as kind of evaluating where startups are and startups in this day and time. Typically, the employees that make those up are coming from different organizations that have had experience in the cloud before. So again, I knew I was going to mention it again. I said it earlier. Making sure that you understand the talent that exists on your team already. It doesn't matter how small your organization is. Make sure you baseline on the talent that's there. But like Stuart said, coupled with the fact that you're more likely not to have so many legacy applications that aren't as ready to be moved over to the cloud, with the fact that you probably have talent that exists there to help you with it, I think sets you up really well for a smooth transition into the cloud.
Okay, we have time just for one more question, and we have someone asking if they can grab a beer with you guys at reInvent. What do you say?
I say the customer's always right, so we don't want to let the customer down. So for sure, I'll be happy to meet with anyone.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to both Stuart and Mark for being with us today. I look forward to working with you at reInvent. And many thanks to everyone that joined us. You will receive the recording of the webinar as soon as it is available. If you have other questions for our experts, feel free to reach out to them on Twitter. You can see their Twitter handles on the screen. Also, if you're looking to close your cloud skills gap, visit us at cloudacademy.com, where you can also access our previous webinars on demand. Additionally, don't miss the chance to meet the team at reInvent. We'll be at booth 1809. Drop by and let's have a chat. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.